Crossing oceans for someone. We have always heard that. Have you ever crossed oceans for yourself? Well, let's find out. Welcome, Lahna.
Thank you.
Lahna, it's so interesting how I connected with you. Actually, we were meeting for the first time, and I creeped on other people's media and everything, and I'm just trusting my intuition, and something about, I just saw your name. I didn't see who you were, how you look like, what your story is, what you do. I just saw the name, and for some reason there's some story here, and I trusted my gut feeling. And I reached out to you, and all I said, hey, do you have a story? And you're like, what? Take it from here. I would love to hear from beginning, from your childhood to your middle, to your struggles, and to where you are now.
That's a really big question. So my parents immigrated here from Vietnam. My dad was supposed to be executed by the Vietnam communists. So because of that, his family needed to find a way for him to flee. And my mother just had me, so I was probably 6 to 9 months old. My mother was not supposed to go with my father, and neither was I, but she just refused, and she said, no, you're not leaving me here. So in the middle of the night, my aunt found a boat that was leaving, and we got on the boat. We drifted in the ocean for 3 days and 3 nights, and we landed in the Malaysian refugee camp. So we spent about 3 months in the refugee camp, and then the Canadian government with a private church group sponsored us to come to Canada. I was told that usually that process took about 6 months, but because I was such a young infant, they expedited us, and we landed here 3 months later. So it was quite the beginning journey.
That's like crossing oceans for yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm not even first generation here. Like I was not born here. I didn't get my citizenship until I was 16 years old. There was a lot of challenges my parents had to go through immigrating here because they didn't speak the language. So many things were different and new to them. They hadn't me as an infant, so that was a challenge trying to raise a baby in an unknown world. And plus the financial aspect. They didn't have anything. So, we relied on the government and the church groups to sort of help us find our grounding, really.
And how was that like, going through the schooling and going through that culture?
Schooling was tough. I mean, we were placed in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, so there wasn't very many minorities or any colored people. So there was a few other Vietnamese families, but for school, I was on my own. I was probably, what I can remember, the only colored person there, the only Asian person there, so I was picked on all the time. I didn't have any friends. I was very, very shy because, as a 5-year-old going to kindergarten, I didn't know how to be, and I didn't know who I was, like most children. I wanted to play just like every other child, but I didn't know how to make friends. So usually when a kid is in that position, they're a little bit intimidated. So I was intimidated. So, and also with the isolation with the family. In Asian culture, we kind of keep to ourselves. And I think a lot of cultures are like that. Mm-hmm. So I didn't make friends. I was picked on. I was beaten up. I was chased home. I had tacks put on my chair in kindergarten. And then there were sort of neighbors who were just not very nice. They would yell at us. And we had no idea what was wrong. We always just thought, it's something that we did.
And how was it for your parents? I mean, were they working or?
My parents were working. They were both working full time. So with the government, because they were both working full time, we were put into daycare, and the government subsidized a good portion of that of the daycare fees. Because as you know, daycare fees are quite expensive. Just for even one child. It could be like at least $800 a month just for one child, and my parents were dealing with 4 children. So it was trying to raise children and work full time and figure out a new world and settling in. It was really quite the challenge for them. And without having family with them, like we have no family in Canada, they're all still in Vietnam. So they didn't really have that support system either. So I mean, with those challenges, my father started, and he had a really big challenge with alcoholism. With that and the pressure of being parents to so many infants, the alcoholism turned into physical abuse. So these were just whippings that would leave welt marks on our bodies as a young child. So we grew up with that all our lives. And with these whippings or beatings, they wouldn't, if we were to cry, they would continue to beat us. And they would tell us that if we wanted the beatings to stop, then we would have to shut up. So that was pretty tough as children.
How was it for going through a teenager then?
Well, teenage years just got a lot tougher. I mean, my parents also had a gambling issue. So it was already tough at home with being poor and not having money and both my parents working. But then, with the gambling, the money, whatever they had saved up, just vanished. So we ended up moving to Vancouver, where my parents started dealing drugs. I have this memory of being in the back of the van with my brothers and sisters, and we were literally on Hastings Street, and drug addicts coming up to the van. So with that, my dad became really, really heavily addicted. And so did my brother at the age of 11. The abuse continued to the point where a police officer had to be brought to the school. And then I was taken away from my family. I was put in 2 foster homes along with my brothers and sisters. And then we were given back to my parents with the warning that if they ever laid a hand on us again, that we'd be taken away for good. So as a child, as a teenager, as the eldest of 4 kids, I had a really rough life. I wasn't able to be a kid. I had to be somewhat of a parent to my siblings. So I wasn't able to be myself. I was so suppressed. And every time something happened, I just felt like it was my fault and that I wasn't worthy of anything, really. Then middle of grade 8, I was sexually molested by 2 uncles on 3 different occasions, which really put me in a really confused spot because my parents didn't do anything about it. They still talked to my uncles and they still allowed them to come over to the house. So I was dealing with a lot of issues at the start of a very young age, and I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know anything, and I internalized it as it being my fault, and it's me. There's something wrong with me. I'm not worthy. God wasn't even in the picture back then because I didn't even know what that was. I just knew that I was taught that family was supposed to be there to protect you. And I didn't have any of that. So then I ended up leaving. I had to leave home for my own safety and for my own life. So I left home at the age of 12 years old. I dropped out of school, grade 8, because there's no way I could focus. I just had nothing. I was just destroyed. So during my teenage years, I went through a lot of drinking. I had no adult supervision. I found friends whom I had just met who took me in. I ended up dating a drug addict, a heroin addict. So I was sort of repeating what I had just come out of. But for me, at that time, that was what I had to do for survival, because he, at the end of the day, he still took care of me. He never forced anything on me. And then one night, even though all of these things happened to me, I still did not blame my parents at that point.
Because they did the best they could.
They did, exactly. I still didn't have the opportunity to, and still today, I still never had the opportunity to talk about it with them, because I understand that it's a hard thing for them to even hear, because they don't know how to deal with it either. So at one point I had my boyfriend come back to my mother's house, and I actually got him to quit off heroin. And then he left after 2 weeks, and I knew he started using again. And so I had asked him, you know, are you using again? He admitted it. And then that's when I said to myself, I cannot be in this relationship.
What was the epiphany for you in all of this? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to the story than what we are sharing here, but what was that epiphany time? What was that aha moment that, no, I have to do something about this situation?
That didn't happen to me until I was 18 years old. I was going through a lot of emotions. So before I got to that, like you said, a lot of things did happen to me. One of them was that there was a drug dealer who was trying to sell me into the sex market at age 14. And he was actually the boss of the drug addict that I was dating, because my boyfriend was running drugs, same cycle I was running, you know. So his boss took me into a house in an attic, and he was expecting to have sex with me, to try me out and test me out before I was put out there for other customers. Luckily, a coffee cup saved my life that night. He was holding a coffee cup, and it spilled on his pants, on his crotch. Right when that happened, we left. If that didn't happen, I probably would have been sold. So that, and then also at 15, I tried to commit suicide. But not in a sense where I was crying out for help, but in a sense where I just wanted to end things and that pain and that suffering. Because of all that trauma I had been carrying, I literally wanted to be dead every moment of my life. It stayed with me forever, every day. So at 18, I realized that I was really tired of what I was going through. I was trying to look for answers. So what I had started doing was reading self-help books, because at that age, I couldn't afford a counselor or a psychiatrist, you know? So I did what I thought I could. I did as much research as possible on the internet so I could learn what I had gone through, all that trauma, you know, all the specific issues and challenges I was going through. I just wanted to learn, and I wanted to read about other people's stories, and from that, I knew that I was not the only one. So then I knew that I had a choice. So my choice was to start loving myself and to start learning about who I am without being so suppressed by all of that trauma. So in a sense, I became my own parent, and I became my own counselor. I became my own cheerleader. But that was a journey. That was a journey I had to take in my 20s. So at age 18, I knew I had to get my shit together. I still did not go back to school and finish school. And yet I enrolled myself in an accounting program. That was a true test of my potential of what I could make of myself. If I had listened to myself and said, oh, you're too dumb, you're too stupid, you only have a grade 8 education, you're not going to make it, like all of those voices were there for sure. But with trying to cope and sort of get through it, I tried to ignore those voices and just tried to keep focus.
And that's what really intrigued me about you is when I was looking for the story, I saw a successful woman. I saw a woman that runs a store. I saw a woman that was totally put together because, of course, I went through your social media. But I still trusted my instinct. And I was like, there's some story there. So let's talk about now. I'm sure there's a lot more to the story. I mean, I know you have shared about your accounting and then how every profession actually prepared you for where you are today. But going through all of that, you choose to change your destiny. So let's come to now. Who is Lahna today?
Today, I'm still evolving and I'm still morphing. A good part of my trauma I have healed from, but with all of us, there's still work to be done. Right now, I'm still focusing on my own self-doubt. So that's my internal sort of challenges, you know, those voices. But my light is getting a lot stronger and stronger and stronger. So today, I mean, yes, I do have a business and I've done a lot to get myself out of that. And that was all by choice. My destiny, by the things that I had gone through, I was meant to be on Hastings Street or dead. I truly believe that. And I truly believe God saved me many times. I should not be here. But God saved me for a reason.
Well, you sharing your story is the reason right there. I don't know who needs to hear this.
I try to help anybody and everybody that comes across my path through guidance. The universe and God sends me people specifically to me for a reason. And I have information for them, specific information for them. And it's not the same message for everybody. Everybody carries a different energy, and I'm able to tap into that, and I see them. I see them for who they are, not for the victim that they are, but I see them for the potential that's in them, you know? Because I believe in them. Even though I don't know them, and even though I just met them, that doesn't matter. I base it, and it comes from love and compassion. And I rely on that, and living through love guides me to connect with everybody and anyone. And that's what helps me. See, me helping them also helps me. So that's the journey that I am on. I have the business, but I don't focus on the business. I focus on the people, because that's my importance. I'm not in business to make money. Not at all. That was never my goal.
And all that's a very successful business.
Thank you.
You have a store in Yaletown?
Yeah. Been 8 years, and I've done probably over $1.5 million in sales.
Wow.
But I don't even celebrate successes, because I should. I know I should. That's, you know, I should be more kind and compassionate to myself, but I'm always looking ahead. I'm always being present, but also looking ahead. So in the future, I know my life journey is to get more of a platform. One of my struggles is that I don't want to be in the spotlight. And that's because of my old conditioning where, you know, our culture, you don't tell people about our problems. You know, our family issue has to stay within the family in private because it'll bring shame to the family. I can't do that anymore. You know, I've let myself accept that statement for 40 plus years, and I am tired of it. So now I'm just trying to create more capacity so I can get out there and reach more people on a one-on-one basis or on a group basis. whatever it may be. I like things to happen organically. So that's my next chapter.
So, thank you so much, Lahna, for being on this show. It really has inspired me a lot, and I'm sure it's inspiring a lot of listeners as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Choices we make today shapes our destiny. What choices did you make that shaped up your destiny? That you can be a light to women of Vancouver. We want to hear your story. Others want to need to hear your story because we want to make that difference, change that life, one life at a time. Women of Vancouver. So Lahna, everyone that comes to my show knows one thing. Mona is all about selfies. So let's capture not only this moment, but let's capture this emotion as well.
Okay, sounds good.